Good morning, everyone. I hope you guys had a great start of your weekend. And today I will have a very special guest. Her name is Rebecca Hudson, and we live in the same state and we do the same thing. We're force free. We have a force free approach. And I have her here invited because she specializes, especially around muzzles and muzzle training. And so I was thinking maybe I will share with you an expert so you guys can do it the right way because things can go wrong, dogs can get frustrated, and you may not reach your goal. Therefore, welcome, Rebecca.
Hi, thank you for inviting me today.
So tell me a little bit about yourself.
As you just stated, I advocate for force-free methods. I am not officially a dog trainer. I choose to just, have my own pet and advocate for the methods. I am a certified veterinary technician with fear-free methods, and through the both certified through the state, and then of course also gone through the fear-free training.
Good. One thing that I really kind of like triggered me to kind of like, who's that? um, you advocate for force free and fear free training in Oregon. Tell me a bit about that. It's your passion, I guess.
Okay, so I am part of Force Free Oregon, which is a nonprofit that was started about 2 years ago to start helping people find uh, force free dog trainers and other pet professionals, specifically in Oregon. We have a directory that we're working on building, and the goal is to make it really easy for people to find force free dog trainers and veterinarians, groomers, uh, and other pet professionals like dog walkers.
Awesome, awesome. Now, how did you end up doing that? Like you woke up one day in the morning, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna become a vet tech and I'm gonna take over Oregon, make it force free.
Well, we had a group chat going one day when a certain famous trainer was going to show up in Oregon to do a
I remember
seminar
that.
that likes to hit dogs over the head, shock dogs in their crate, and other horrendous things. And this group chat was organizing basically a protest against this trainer's seminar here in Oregon when he was going to be training other trainers and pet owners how to use his methods.
Awesome. Interesting. So I remember that, and I think that's how we met. I was like, it's really somebody who puts things up and get this hand to work. I have worked with those particular trainer. I work with many of his clients, leftovers, and because I work with very sensitive dogs and trauma dogs, he came up to my radar, and yeah, that's not going well. Anyway, um, muzzles. Give me a little bit an idea. Since you're a vet tech, you have to deal with it a lot. So why did you, what made you look into the muzzle training?
Well, I actually don't work in private practice with dogs, so I don't end up using muzzles in my daily work. But I ended up going to muzzling for my own personal dog, Astrid, because she was scavenging for food off the ground on walks, and she started having food allergies to very common things on the ground like beef and chicken. I live right near a fast food restaurant that does not
There
go
you
well.
go.
And when your dog is scavenging just once in a great while, getting food off the ground, and you're not successful managing and not successful at doing a complete job of training it, your dog is being intermittently reinforced for scavenging that food off the ground. And she was getting staph infections from her intense itching,
Oh man.
and then ending up at the vet going on antibiotics. So the muzzling was just a way to stop that cycle, prevent, and manage.
Um, we're gonna talk about your presentation. What will we see in that presentation?
We're going to see, I'm going to go over the many reasons to muzzle train, some of the different types of muzzles. We're going to go over some of the myths and misconceptions, and we're going to cover also how to train muzzles.
Awesome. Now, many will have this idea that muzzle will restrain your dog. Me personally, I always thought, muzzle training, the dog doesn't like it. So therefore, it's subversive. Therefore, why would I teach the dog something that he doesn't like it? Like, would you like to go in prison? No. Would you like to have a helmet on all day long or putting a seatbelt and driving your car? No. So give me a little bit an idea. Why would people think that muzzle training is not force free?
Well, and people have those misconceptions just like you did, just like I did. I mean, I had two previous reactive dogs, one
Hmm.
of which my first day with a trainer, they told everybody else because I was in a group class with this dog. He told everybody else, "Do not touch that dog; it will bite you."
Hmm.
I didn't muzzle that dog. Today, if I was to do that over again, that dog would have been muzzled because I had those same misconceptions. The reality is, muzzles only prevent dogs from putting things in their mouth. And so dogs can do all their normal behaviors running, sniffing. My dog goes swimming in their muzzle and having a great time.
Huh.
He, it's kind of like us putting our face mask on. Nobody necessarily particularly liked it in the beginning, but what does it stop us from doing?
Right, right. Um, I feel many people associate muzzle with something very scary. And I mean, don't take me wrong, but if you would tell me muzzle like a couple of years ago, this picture will come in my mind. And I'm like, wait, that's mean, right? Now,
Mhm.
of course, there are multiple facets here, and we're going to talk about that. Meanwhile, for you guys who watch here, um, we are in Oregon. I'm in Eugene. Where are you at?
I'm near Portland. I'm in Hillsboro.
Perfect. And obviously, you have snow. We don't have snow down here. Where are
Mhm.
you guys watching from? So we know a little bit idea where you guys watching from. And welcome you to while we're watching the presentation. You can ask your questions. We're gonna collect the questions, and then we're gonna do a Q&A afterwards. So the first thing we're gonna talk is about the idea of muzzle training and all the concepts and all the types of muzzles and all the reasons why we should or maybe should not wear the muzzle in some cases. And we're going to go over um, some things that we have to consider: dogs who are traumatized, dogs who may have trauma, and dogs may or will have a trauma response if we're not doing it correctly. Okay, so we have some people from New York. Hi, Paul. The regulars. And yeah, it's Sunday, and I know some of you guys didn't even wake up yet. I'm just still with my coffee here.
Mhm.
And yeah, let's get you started.
All right, cool. Let me
Oh, you can
share.
drink your coffee.
I can drink that later. So, ooh, um, I see. How do I? Oh, Lauren made it on the Facebook. Good.
Hi, Lauren.
She shared one of her pictures of her dog Monarch who is muzzled.
Perfect.
So you'll see her later.
Thank you
Now
for
I'm
the
trying to
contribution,
figure out
everyone. And you're always
it's.
welcome to upload pictures of your muzzle dog
Mhm.
and your concern because we're going to talk about that. We eventually will say, hey, you know what? We love the picture, but watch this and watch that when wearing the muzzle because we're going to talk about that.
Okay. It looks like I am showing up twice, and one of them is with the presentation. I don't know how to get that to.
I got you covered here.
All right, thank you.
How about that?
Yes, that's great.
Good.
All right, I'm going to go over to that screen.
Yeah, we are
So,
professionals. We have no clue what we're doing here. We're just playing around, see how it works. Now, just give everybody a heads up. I haven't done it before like that, pulling in a presentation with a colleague. So bear with us.
all right. So, as we were discussing before, many people have a misconception that muzzles are abusive. But those of us who practiced with using muzzles have realized it's giving our dogs a lot of freedom. And so we're going to cover some of these topics today as we discussed. And so here's where I asked a lot of people for some pictures of their dogs and the reasons why their dogs are muzzle trained. And so we're going to cover that first. Some of the reasons dogs wear muzzles include safety during lure coursing and play, as some dog breeds have very thin skin. The stigma around muzzles actually helps us advocate for our dog's space from humans and dogs if we need it. Uh, Often dogs that need space have anxiety, so keeping people or dogs far enough away from them helps us provide them an enjoyable experience out in nature. Muzzles also prevent dogs from being able to bite when on walks or at specific locations like the vet office. Some dogs wear muzzles as a backup safety measure to protect prey in case our training or other management fail. Muzzles also prevent dogs from suffering from pica from eating non-edible objects like rocks. You can see Monarch in the bottom left-hand corner. That is Loren's dog, and she advocates for muzzle use on TikTok, where I met her. Um, and then, as we discussed earlier, my own dog is muzzle trained for preventing scavenging. And it also helps us advocate for her space from other dogs, particularly off-leash dogs. I find having a brightly colored muzzle, like you see there, actually helps me motivate people with illegally off-leash dogs to come fetch their dog faster. I'll tell them, hey, call your dog. My dog's muzzled for a reason.
Right.
And I don't need to tell them why she's muzzled. They can believe it's for aggression for all I care. So all the dogs in the previous screen were wearing basket muzzles. And this is because this is the best type for most uses and for most dogs, because it allows for panting, eating, drinking, and other normal behaviors. The only thing these muzzles limit is what dogs can put in their mouth. They will find it harder to eat food off the ground, which is why muzzles can be used for things like pica and scavenging. But they can still eat food from your hand pretty easily. It will take a little bit of practice. Some basket muzzles can prevent eating food off the ground better than others. Another type is mesh muzzles. Now, these should only really be used in settings like veterinary offices and grooming places because they're working by keeping the mouth closed, and this prevents panting. So the dogs cannot regulate their temperature. And then the third type are head muzzles. This is used for short-nosed dogs because sometimes you really can't put anything else on their nose very well, hold it in place with the really short noses. So now we're going to cover mostly basket muzzles because that's what majority of dogs will be utilizing. So there are many types of basket muzzles. I'm not going to be covering every single type here. There's the cheap plastic muzzles you can find in a lot of stores. These will be like $15 to $20. Downsides is these may not fit your dog very well. There's going to be limited sizes. The hard muzzles should be reasonably bite-proof. Another type is rubber muzzles. The classic brand is Basketville, which you can see Astrid wearing there. They're also cheap and can be found in stores. There is some silicone knockoffs that are less rigid and will be even less bite-proof than the Basketville. And again, there's only a limited number of sizes. I think Basketville probably has like 6 or 7 sizes. One of the reasons why I switched Astrid from a Basketville to eventually the Birdwell was because I could not get a good fit in a Basketville. And then the main type Astrid now uses is a Greyhound type muzzle. These are also cheap. You won't find them in your usual box stores, but you can find them all over on the internet, including Amazon. They're designed to have a better pant room. There are oftentimes limited sizes though, so this will be mostly useful for medium to large dogs with narrow to normal snouts. Astrid's wearing a Birdwell. And then another type is leather muzzles. These come in more sizes. Some of them have felt padding on top of the nose. And some designs will provide lots of pant room, other designs not so much. The reason I didn't end up staying with a leather muzzle was because the particular brand I tried did not have a treat hole, and it was difficult to feed my dog. And so we had difficulty building up duration. So I spent months trying to build duration in this muzzle that looked like it should be super comfortable for my dog, but we just could not build the duration because she kept on getting frustrated as the treats rolled out the side. And so we switched the Birdwell and had her trained in a week. But I should caution you, your dog on the first muzzle, do not expect them to be trained in a week. This was her third muzzle that she was trained to wear. Then there are a couple custom basket muzzles. There's Biothane. The main companies selling them are Booma and Trust Your Dog muzzles. There's also some other stores on Etsy. Because these are custom, they will have better fit and comfort. The downside is these usually start at about $70 and go up in price. Technically, the Biothane muzzles are not for determined biters because they can potentially bite through, but I do know some people who utilize these muzzles for bite risk dogs and just have it be an extra layer of management. And then another type is vinyl. There are also some non-custom versions of vinyl, but a lot of these brands that do the non-custom versions also support use of adversives, so I choose not to promote them. But Trust Your Dog muzzles provides custom ones, and so they provide a good fit and comfort. These are considered bite-proof, but they start at about similar prices as the Biothane muzzles at about $70. So for getting the right fit, we're going to have to measure our dog's snout. You're going to measure the length. I choose to also measure the width, particularly for the Greyhound type of muzzle because they're kind of narrow. And then you're going to need to check for the circumference when your dog's mouth is closed and in a full pant. And for full pant, you can put a ball, have your dog hold a ball in their mouth and measure it that way to mimic a full pant. And if you're getting a custom muzzle, you're going to have to do some more measurements than these. And many of the websites do not provide good sizing guidelines for full panting. So what I would recommend is take these measurements and compare them to the actual muzzle measurements, not their sizing guide. So some common mistakes people make are not training the dogs sufficiently prior to needing it. You need to take your time with muzzle training, and you also need to make sure you train your dog to wear the muzzles in new places. I made the mistake of not training Asher to wear her Baskerville muzzle, her first muzzle, in new places, and this meant that she really didn't like putting it on in new places. But I made sure I corrected that error with the Birdwell. The next mistake is some people buy mesh muzzles for dog walking and other situations they really shouldn't be used in. It's just best to go with a basket muzzle in most situations. And you can even use a basket muzzle in the veterinary office and in grooming situations. Ideally, basket muzzles should allow for a full panting without being too large in the other dimensions. You can use a muzzle that doesn't provide full panting carefully. I use that Baskerville muzzle for walks and such as long as the weather wasn't too hot. It allowed for a partial pant but not a full pant. And so I just had to monitor my dog until I could get a better muzzle. And you will probably go through multiple muzzles before finding one that's the ideal fit. And so there's a couple options for your muzzles that aren't such a great fit. There is a muzzle exchange group on Facebook, or you could give your other muzzles away to somebody like a trainer who can use them with other dogs. Then the third mistake many people make is associating muzzles with stressful events. So if you're going to use a muzzle for things like veterinary visits or grooming, you need to train it prior to your first visit. And in between visits, you also need to have your dog wear it for fun stuff like dog walks or just a treat party. There are so many concerns with muzzle use. The first one is that people think it's abusive. And I'm trying to play a video on the left-hand side of the screen of my dog choosing between a bunch of squeaky toys and her muzzle. She gets the same treats whether she puts on the muzzle or plays with the squeaky toys. So she is literally choosing between them, and these are squeaky toys she does not get except for interactive play. So dogs can actually learn to love their muzzles, just like any other gear. In fact, Astrid would rather put on her muzzle than a harness, and I've spent far more time trying to train her to wear a harness. Um, they can also eat, drink, and perform normal behaviors with their muzzle on. And these muzzles allow us to give our dogs freedom they otherwise couldn't have safely. I've been to so many locations where there's food on the ground that I would have had to just not take Astrid there, but she can go explore and be safe. Another concern is that dogs can't defend themselves with muzzles on, which is true, but it is far easier for us to break up a fight if there's only one set of teeth involved. And it is our job to defend our dogs, not their job to defend themselves. And we cannot count on them to defend themselves. Some dogs will not. They'll
Totally
just
agree
cower.
on that.
And then the third misconception is that dogs just need training and they don't need a muzzle. But not all problems can be solved with training. Just like with Astrid with her scavenging, where just using training, she was still getting intermittently reinforced for the scavenging, which just helps strengthen that behavior and makes it harder to extinguish. So muzzle helped with the management. And same for some dogs with pica. Uh, Training is never 100% proved, so a muzzle is a great backup plan, great backup safety measure. And some dogs need muzzles for safety while undergoing training because we cannot count on other individuals to respect our dog's space even when we verbalize it. And also, we as humans make mistakes and sometimes might put our dogs in situations that they may be prone to bite, even though we didn't intend for that to happen. And I'm going to hand it over to Roman to cover his desensitization video.
Okay, so what we see here basically is for the muzzle. What I would like you to do is put the treat in your lower finger and clamp it in between your fingers. Then make this a nice shovel thing, and then let the dog take the treat. Keep it nice and long there, so he needs to work it out. Reload your hand. Repeat that. When you have a slap of finger, make sure that you slide the side. And start making that hole smaller, so the dog has really difficult time getting to the treat. Repeat. And when your dog starts doing that repeatedly, start calling it muzzle up. So the reason why I do that, maybe Rebecca, you want to stop that a little bit. Muzzle up.
Okay, hang on.
So the reason why I do that is because I want the dog to get comfortable with my hands as well, with the whole idea, the concept. So I like when dogs understand and have a consent. I like to come with consent. So the idea is that you have to put your muzzle somewhere that's very tight and that's rewarding. That's where the consent comes in. The more the dog wants to do that, the more you have consent. And then I would add the muzzle as a second part of the consent. Okay, now you did it with my hand. Would you like to do that with that? Because it doesn't have this comfort as the hand has, but then it becomes a cold thing that comes attached to your mouth. It's a little bit harder in your hand. But the concept is here and the consent is there, and then I think that's a good start. Thank you.
Oops, sorry. The play button is right next to the other
Yep.
button on this thing. So there we go. All right. Do you want me to show more of that video, or do you
Yeah,
want me to
yeah. If
continue?
you you can go to the next one. I think the whole idea was, and I would definitely do that like at least couple of times before we introduce the muzzle. Like when you order the muzzle online, start working on that, and then when the muzzle is, you're ready to go.
Yeah, I wasn't introduced to that until doing this presentation when you shared that with me, so I didn't do that with my muzzle, but it's a great way because a lot of the good muzzles are going to take a couple weeks to arrive to you, so you might as well start some other training. Particularly the custom muzzles will have it a little delay.
What I usually do here is actually start implementing a game with that.
Mhm.
I will have the dog roaming around in the yard, and then I call him, "Hey, muzzle up!" and he basically comes running and flip, put his nose in my hands. It also can help you for multiple other things. For example, once you have conditioned that, you can also deliver pills in
Mhm.
that form, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's similar to the Shrog Patel's muzzle game, where he's using an actual muzzle, but he's having the dog run to it, which is
Right, right.
really great. Uh, so on the next slide, I'm gonna show you how I train muzzles. Um, just a moment. So the first step is to put food in the muzzle and let the dog eat the food out of the muzzle. And each one of these steps you're going to repeat many times over many sessions. I'm just showing you each step like once or twice.
What I like is that the dog actually searched for it. He gives you indication, "Hey, I want more of that."
Yeah, she is very prone. I mean, I just took this video yesterday, so this is a fully muzzle trained dog showing you how to do it. Um, and so the second step is to have the dog put their head in the muzzle and then give them treats, and to start adding some duration between treats. And I really do want my dog to be seeking the muzzle, as you see here, before I proceed to the next step, which
Perfect.
would be putting the strap over the head. And a lot of dogs will start bulking at that stage, so you may have to take some time and break that down into smaller steps. Do not strap it in the beginning. You need to work on duration here before strapping it in.
We're gonna talk about the strapping part in a later part.
Good, because that can be a sticky point for a lot of dogs. So here you saw me strap it in. You need to be looking for some signs of stress at any point in time and backing up on the steps if you see signs of stress. See, I want my dog to be putting her head in the muzzle. And the last stage is moving around, because some dogs will be fine putting their head in the muzzle, but not moving around in the beginning. And so I just use some common cues that my dog already knows and have her move her head around, have her do sit, down, anything your dog's going to do while wearing the muzzle, practice it inside. And then the final step is to take this to new locations and train your dog to put it on, train your dog to go walking outside with it. Okay. And then here are some great resources. We have for general muzzle information, we have the Muzzle Up Project. And they also have a Facebook group and a Facebook page and an Instagram. And they provide a lot of resources for training, locating different muzzle brands, and sizing. And then there's for two of my favorite places to look for muzzles are the Trust Your Dog site, and then Birdwell muzzles are nice and cheap. That's the muzzle you saw Astrodon in. And then for training videos, two of my favorite are the Michael Shikashio video and then the Shrog Patel video.
Awesome.
And then I wanted to give a special thanks to the people who provided pictures today. I reached out to the Force Free Muzzle Training Facebook group, and they provided a bunch of pictures to pick from and told me why their dogs are muzzled. And then there are several muzzle advocates online that I reached out to, including Lauren with her dog Monarch, Sierra with her dog Bones.
She's welcome to join, by the way, since she has already the link if she wants to help us with the Q&A later.
Yeah, I made a little mistake on which
That's
link
okay.
I prepared. And then Lorena Janice Wallace is another one, and one of her dogs is also muzzled.
Awesome.
Okay. And then here are our pluggables. So Roman has a website, and he's a dog trainer. And then, as mentioned before, I work with Force Free Oregon on their website and advocating for force free use in Oregon. I also have a T-shirt store uh, where
Yeah,
I
I like
always
those T-shirts. I definitely will order one and
well,
kind of
thank you.
distribute to my clients because sometimes people don't listen. They just but they will look at your shirt. They're like, "Whoa, oh, that's a cool shirt. Oh, okay, I'm gonna stay clear there."
Yeah, and I tried to have the font be very large on a lot of those ones, on a lot of those T-shirts. A lot of my T-shirts advocate for our dog's space on our shirt, like "Don't approach" or "Leash your dog." My dog's "My owner bites" is my favorite shirt. This is what started this whole thing. In fact, my Facebook page for this is, I think, by that. It's "Leash your dog, my owner bites."
That's a cool one.
Yes,
Awesome. Yeah, let me talk a little bit about
sure.
the trauma aspect. Are you done, right?
Yeah, I'm
Am I
done.
wrong? Okay, good.
So you can and let's unstop share screen. There we are.
Oh yeah, good. So, I like the presentation. Super awesome, super informative. What do you guys think? Did you learn anything? Because I did. Um, Having such a good visualization helps you better understand the concept of using the right muzzle. And I also like the fact that you mentioned about the measuring part
Mhm,
because I used to, when I order muzzle for a dog or suggest muzzling the dog, I tell them, buy the one that you think you should, then
mhm,
buy the one that you didn't think you should, and then buy the other one that's bigger than what you should,
mhm,
and then you likely get spot on there. And plus, there are some muzzles that are harder, some muzzles that are softer, some dogs are very sensitive.
mhm,
And so when we're talking about the yeah, well, you know what, Paul? If you would subscribe, you would never get all these notifications and will be just in time here. But you're excused. You're always on the show anyways, so you're good. Okay, just watch it from the beginning later. And of course, you guys can share it because I think there's a lot of miscommunication, misinformation. And the second part, we're going to talk a little bit about trauma. It's complicated, so I don't want you guys to freak out. I just want to give you a little bit of an idea that trauma is an issue with dogs, and especially if you have to desensitize or work with your dog. So that's my turn to kind of try to to do the screen thing here. Give me a second. I'll figure it out here. Here we go. So these are some presentations out of my trauma workshop. So forgive myself if I have to scroll a little bit back and forth. So I would like you to notify a little bit about the trauma. The trauma can become a central definition of experience that determines patterns of thinking, feeling, and acting. So, in other words, if your dog has a trauma brain, and some of you eventually have trauma brain like me yourself, you understand what it means if you have a thought, and that thought is being filtered through a trauma experience, then naturally emotions will come up, and those emotions will naturally trigger a response, and the response will be expressed in a behavior. So, when we're looking at that concept of trauma, before we start muzzling the training, we need to truly understand what's going on with my dog. I see very, very often on social media, if your dog does something, oh, put him a muzzle on, that fix it. Or my dog is reacting to other dogs, just put a muzzle on, that will fix it. Or the dog is picker eating, oh, just put a muzzle on, that will fix it. Without actually going into the background and ask the question, why does my dog think that is a good choice to do, and why am I expressing that emotion in that particular way? And for that reason, I would like you to show you a video, and that thing that you see in the next to that. um, so T-bone is an extreme. I'm struggling with the same thing you do.
mhm,
Hold on, I see where it is. I don't even see the clicking. Oh yeah, here it is. So T-bone is a severe abuse case that I worked with Austin Pets Alive, that took in the dog from Austin Shelter. So he was in Austin Shelter on the kill list, and then ended up being on the kill list at Austin Pets Alive. And both of them are non-kill shelters and rescues. And the reason why he was so difficult is because he was severely abused as a puppy. And of course, many suggested, actually did, put the dog a muzzle on and had him deal with the situation wearing a muzzle, which didn't work out well. And that's why I stepped in. So here I'm going to show you that is the first 3 weeks, oh, sorry, the first 3 months after I got the dog. And once we bonded, we created a secure attachment bond. Then we start working on these specific trauma triggers. And all I have to do here is holding something in my hand, and you're going to see that particular behavior. And so many people, also veterinarians and groomers, will resort to a muzzle to handle it. So because the dog has to be groomed, therefore we just put him a muzzle on so I can do what I need to do. But watch that video here, see a little bit what's going on. So you see, oops, oh man, that sucks. Okay, here we go. I'll get a handle on it. Okay, so the first thing we see is the dog has held down. His body response is like that. And we see our dog is really scared. He wants to come to me because there's a relationship attraction there, but his body tells him not to. And so there's a conflict. And this is a symbolized behavior. So as I move my hand towards the dog, you see here his body lifting. His tail is not going under the tail, so that's under the leg. That's okay. So it's a good. But the whole body posture, the way the dog is bended, the whole thing is totally insecure. And you see, I show you from different angles how it looks like. Did you see the whale eyes there? And the first thing I did is I showed him the muzzle and waited for him for consent. So he didn't give me consent. Ugh, here we go. So he didn't give me consent. So I basically walked away from the situation and reset the whole game. Oh man, sorry guys. It's not a well designed system here. My apologies. So I'll go through it here. Here we go. I think I figured it out. So I reject and walk away and have the dog then reset, come back to me here. And since the dog got the first message that I will respect his consent, you see how the body posture changed, right? Now, you saw I didn't force the dog to sit, and I just asked him to sit. It was not a command, it was a cue, and he was trained to get the cue. He can sit wherever he feels safe. If he wouldn't feel safe, he would not sit on his own. And you saw also whale eyes and lip licking, which is another signal of disconcern. And because I want him to feel more comfortable about the situation, we have a cue, like a ritual. If we shake hands, we are in good terms. And you see, he's still struggling, he's still concerned. I'm not pushing it. And he already shaked his head, tried to get rid of the trauma. Right now, that situation caused the dog enough stress in his body to be at the threshold of stuck trauma. And the reason why he shaked it off was because he felt that trauma accumulating, and the best way dogs do is shaking it off. And he gave me his paw, so we're in good terms, and I show him exactly how it feels like, what we're gonna do next. You see already his head a little bit turning away. He's like, I don't know about that really. And one thing you see also, I'm not restricting the dog. The dog has an option to walk away. I'm just restricting how far he can turn away from me, but I'm not restricting his neck. And I'm starting from below, I'm not starting from above. Oops, again, I made a mistake. Sorry. I'm kind of stressed here. Here we go. And as we progress, you see the dog feel more and more comfortable. So first of all, I had the soft brush, and then I turned it to the spikes. Okay, that was just to give you an idea how to process it, because you're gonna see eventually the same behavior if you show the dog a muzzle, and he doesn't feel comfortable. I would not proceed until you start having consent. So the next thing I would like to show you is a little bit of a diagram to understand how a survival response will happen. Because if you put your dog a muzzle on, the dog goes into a survival response. We need to understand how it works. So Let's see a complete survival response. The dog has a startle event. He's going to defense orienting. In that case, your dog will likely try to avoid the muzzle. Okay, so he's going through a process in his mind. How do I get rid of that thing? And then he's going in two situations, fight or flight. So this is a startle response. From there, what's going to happen? His trauma response will kick in, and he wants either to fight it or he wants to walk away from it. If your dog wants to walk away from it, it's just like with T-Bone, what happened before. I will reset the whole situation and introduce him from a different angle. See if I can help him change his mindset, how the situation will end up. So eventually, you have to do a little bit more work and prep work when you do it with the muzzle. Even if that means you have him to get used to seeing the muzzle at the first place, right? Because some people, to have things in their hands and the dog has been through a traumatic experience, that thing in your hand can cause the dog harm and the dog may already trigger by that. That in your hand can hurt me, and no matter what your intentions are, that is already getting the dog into a fight or flight response. You will see if your dog goes into attack mode and he wants to go after that because he feels like you're gonna hurt him, I would definitely drop the muzzle and walk away from the situation and consult a behaviorist to walk you through the process. You're also welcome to reach out to me. Now, once the dog has the solution to what he's struggling with, that becomes a discharge of sympathetic energy. So you saw T-Bone shaking it off. That was a complete survival response, right? Now let's look at the incomplete survival response. We have the same startle event. People show the dog the muzzle. The dog goes into defense orienting, and because somebody is holding the dog, for example, at the vet's office, and people forcing him the muzzle on, the dog will not have a fight or flight response. He will, but he cannot complete it. And then he goes into a freeze response. Somebody mentioned it before. And that is a non discharge of sympathetic energy. That becomes a stuck trauma. Does it make sense? So, incomplete survival response happens. This is an extreme case here of another trainer who actually thought that would be a good case to have a dog with a shock collar on and having the handler, the owner, holding the whole body of the dog, pushing him to submission, right? But also you see that particular practice where veterinarians do that, and I know you guys who did the force-free training talked about that, is where dogs are being held down in a specific position in order to put the muzzle on, otherwise the dog will fight it. So this will be things that we talked about before, that eventually that will become an incomplete survival response. It becomes a stuck trauma. This is likely what the dog doesn't like to go to the vet, beside the experience of pain. Okay, so now I hope that will help you a little bit see the trauma aspect of it. And some questions here.
Yep. And I
Yeah,
wanted
very
to add one more detail on if your dog is responding negatively to a certain muzzle, particularly if they have a prior history of negative experiences with a muzzle that looks like that, get a different brand that looks different and start over.
right,
Because
right.
if they're, been experiencing a basket muzzle in the veterinary office before you've trained it, it's very likely they're going to take a lot longer to train that one than a more comfortable muzzle.
Good. So we're good in time. So you guys welcome to start asking your questions. Hi to Utah. Hi, Steve. Steve is actually a fellow colleague, and he also works for several national Pyrenees rescues, and he's dealing with reactive dogs a lot. And yes, correct. Sometimes the color makes a difference.
Yeah,
So,
I
any
really like
questions?
a bright color for advocating for our dog space. I found with the black muzzle that people could not see it on my dog. And I literally had people letting their dogs loose in an on leash park upon seeing us to come play with my dog and say, "Oh, I thought our dogs could play."
Mm. One other very important part that you guys need to know when wearing a muzzle, there's a lot of information missing through the muzzle when it comes down to social interactions. For example, the other dog will not see raising the lip. The dog will not see panting. The other dog will not see signals that are given with the tongue. And sometimes those are very important signals, because this is part of dogs communicating with each other. And this false information will put the other dog in a trap. So that's why you have to protect your dog in this situation, because the information necessary for the dog to be safe in his place are not given. Therefore, the other dog just walks into the trap without knowing it. So, any questions, you guys? And you guys welcome to talk here. If anybody wants to join, let us know. You only need to put some comments in there, and we're up and running. And we have a couple of workshops coming up. So if you want to get notified, you're welcome to subscribe. You go to my website, holisticdogtraining.org, and subscribe there. And of course, I would like you to do that with Oregon. Hold on, I get there. Just a second. I got it right in control. Three, two, one. Here we go. Um, Subscribe and get updates. And if you need a trainer in your area, you can reach out to me. I have a couple of colleagues that I can refer you to, or we're gonna work the whole thing online. I can help you with that too. There is a great library. Definitely, I would look into that and get some YouTube videos and some interactions. And please read them through. I know people just like, oh, great, I clicked on it. Now I'm emotionally satisfied that I did something for my dog. And then you're going to scroll right after that. I would say read through them, understand what's going on, and that will help you a lot helping your dog. So, Paul has a couple of questions. I started out training in personal protection. Muzzle was only used for teaching the dog to punch or shoulder block. Basket muzzle. I now work with human aggressive dogs. I only use leather mesh when establish vagal tone. Yeah, perfect. Now, I personally, um, I would suggest um, when we're working with aggressive dogs, we have to understand the concept of aggression. Aggression is not a behavior. Okay, aggression is a state of mind. Aggression is a tool to survive, and if the dog goes into survival response, then he has to work his way by having all this aggression mindset to go through this process. In other words, you are basically going through aggression while trying to find a parking lot that's closest one to your shopping center. Or you're going to negotiate a price on your car that you want to buy, so you will have aggressive attitude because you're going to save money that will eventually save your family. And so we have to see that concept. So if your dog shows any signs of aggression, it's not because he's a mean dog, because he's in a survival mode. And the only way out of there is to recognize what the dog is struggling with. And the muzzle on is not the solution to it. It's part of a complex solution. And you need to see the whole concept of it, not that isolated. And I know many groups who promote muzzle training, they don't even discuss the behavior. It only discuss the muzzle training, which means you know how to put the muzzle on, but you're not solving the dog's problem. Make sense? So let's,
Yeah, I like to tell people that the muzzle should not change the dog's behavior at all.
no.
If it is, you need to look at why. The one potential good reason for the muzzle changing the dog's behavior is if it's making you more relaxed and influencing your dog in that manner. Otherwise, your dog may be shutting down from improper muzzle training.
Right, right. That's very often that happens, and especially if we do introduction dogs to dogs. And I know some of you guys who are watching are working with rescues and fosters. Um, I have seen dogs learn easier when they see it happening with others. So I have a fake dog. Um, he's up here on the wall. Um, that I use to show other dogs what I will do with a dog that looks like a dog with a thing that I have in my hands, and that will help them get the idea what's going to happen in the future. Once the dog can predict what's going to happen, he feels much calmer. So if you have a good dog who is awesome and everything, it takes everything very easily, start with that dog and let the other dog watch what you're doing. That will make this life much more easier once the dog can predict. And so if we see um, the dogs responding to situations like introducing to other dogs or introducing to children, and we put the dog the muzzle on, the muzzle does not do anything to the emotions the dog is expressing through that process. You cannot condition emotion. I will never sit with my abuser on the same table try to make out. No. But if I see remorse and we can talk about it, it still don't change how I feel. I just learn how to manage my feelings. It doesn't change them. Now, always keep in mind you're conditioning the muzzle, you're not conditioning the emotions. Yeah, Steve works with guardian breeds,
Mhm.
and of course, many people have multiple ideas how to muzzle train the dog who kills
Mhm.
chickens. So, for example, bind him a chicken around his neck and put the muzzle on. How sick is that? Anyway, so he has to deal with these kind of people
Mhm.
very often. I'll just give you a heads up. Do you guys have any other questions? And of course, would like to see you guys sharing it, because us talking about here on a closed table having coffee is just us talking about it and not other people getting information out. So instead of complaining about other bad videos showing how bad things can happen, how about we share a video that actually educate people, right? And of course, I would say Steve is right. There is no textbook, but
Mhm.
there is a guideline. This is how you start. There is a first concept. Introduce the dog the muzzle. Introduce the dog your intentions. It should not come with the idea, I'm going to fix you, because that already is a predatory intentions, and some dogs are smart enough to picking that up the emotion. And make that a fun oh my god, you have no clue what I have here. And your dog goes like, what's that? Oh, you want to try that? Oh my god, that, oh, what is in here? Look at that, there is a treat. And your dog already triggers to that. So that curiosity is what's your momentum to start the whole thing going. Anyone else? Good. I guess we covered everything. No questions. As good thing or it's a bad thing. The good thing is everybody figured out exactly what to do, and the bad thing is they had no clue what we just talked about. But I think we're in a good spot here.
Mhm.
Okay, Rebecca, how did you like our questions of our people here? I think that we have some good feedback.
We had some very good feedback.
Yeah, I
It was
liked
a very nice
this one
presentation that you
of
put on as
Paul,
well.
who knows what to do. I love your presentation, really. That was very well done.
Thank you.
And who else talked about stuff?
Okay.
Laureen, thank you for the pictures. We should definitely do that again.
Mhm.
Going a little bit step by step process.
Mhm.
Or do you guys have any workshops coming up around muzzles?
We do not, but
Okay,
as far
we're
as
gonna
for
mark one.
training, muzzles, if you have a particular dog trainer on YouTube that you like, they probably have a muzzle training video. And if they don't, ask them to make one.
Okay, I feel guilty. Okay. Yeah, because I work online, and my dogs are, like, okay, let's do this.
Mhm.
It will be fake. It would not be a real thing. I had a muzzle worked in the past with a husky. That was in when I was in Phoenix, and this guy would attack his owner just with the idea the owner wants something from his dog.
Mhm.
And so he had to go to the vet to do some blood work done, and so we had to work on that muzzle. And so since the owner wasn't able to address that because the dog was already suspicious, I was called in to help him. And I did a lot of mistakes because I was basically scared, because I've seen what he had done to his owner, and I put myself into that situation. I was like, man, I shouldn't take that case on, right? But finally we got there with a couple of mistakes. I used clicker reinforcement, I used street reinforcement, but I was able to capture the process the dog went through, his mindset. And the reason why I'm not posting it, because people misinterpret the whole thing, and they don't see all these details.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, I had done a lot of mistakes, which I want them to be there so people can see not to do them. So if you guys are interested looking at that video, welcome to message me and we can talk about it.
Mhm.
Yes, correct. What was that here? I missed that. Up, sorry. Here we go. By establishing a vagal tone to discharge stress. When the stimulation of the vagus occurs, correct. It's a dog. My glasses are gone here. When stimulating the nerve, I use a tone inflection from soothing to confident. Yeah, and definitely would say people, I would not start working with your dog around trauma and around aggression with muzzles if you don't have a secure attachment bond. The dog should trust you through this process.
Mhm.
Hi, Michelle.
Mhm.
Good.
Yeah. And I actually have on my YouTube channel the videos for the first couple sessions of using the Birdwell muzzle. But people should keep in mind that, again, that was Astrid's third muzzle, so that muzzle training process went swiftly.
Right,
And
right.
so this will not be the pace other people will go through, but I believe those videos were completely unedited.
Mhm.
The first several sessions is on
And
my YouTube channel.
perfect. And I want to kind of put it out there. I know people struggling financially, and we want to kind of like skip the financial part of it. Like, okay, let's first the video. Sometimes we don't understand the dog's behavior. We are biased, and sometimes maybe just schedule one session to get the professional do the assessment for you, so you know what you're dealing with, and then these people can give you a guideline. I work with many people who says, you know what, I cannot afford you, but can do one session. I'm like, cool, take a session so I know what you're dealing with, and then I can navigate you around and give you specific videos. I don't have a problem with that, showing you a couple of rounds. And if you struggle, I know you will come back to me, or you come to somewhere that you feel more confident, but at least you know what's going on with your dog. And I think that's an important start. Awesome. Rebecca, I so appreciate you. Super awesome.
Yeah, thank you for
We should
inviting
do
me.
more of that. And thank you guys for joining us today. I know many of you skipped something that you should do, so don't get back to your dog, get him out for a walk. We are raining here in Eugene, and my guys are like, I'm not going out there. I'm gonna get wet. So I have to wait. I have to, for a dry window to get out there. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. And Steve, we have a couple of questions here. Exactly, Steve. Thank you. Okay, so goodbye, everyone. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next Saturday.